This fan magazine, Photoplay from 1929, gives us an image of one of the popular stories about the coming of sound. Hollywood star Norma Talmadge looks doubtfully up at the microphone, and on the cover of the magazine, the microphone, the terror of the studios. Looking at Hollywood and the way that Hollywood adapted to sound gives us a fascinating insight into hundreds of human stories. Who were the technicians that helped that transition from silent to sound cinema? And what happened to them after the transition to the sound? How did they continue to innovate and adapt through the 1930s and into the 1940s in what we think of as the golden age of American filmmaking? We've come down into the Bill Douglas Cinema Museum to look a bit more closely at sources and objects that can tell us about the development of film sound style and film sound expertise in Hollywood cinema in the classic period. What I've got in front of me is just a selection of sources, books, fan magazines, postcards, film publicity. Books like this beautiful scientific recreation series, Marvels of Light and Sound, cover the developments of sound recording technologies which reach back right to the 19th century. Similarly, Invention and Discovery is a popular book from the early 20th century which covers technological inventions. Typically, the early sound film has been described as very static and draggy, and in fact the term draggy was a recurrent one in reviews of early sound films. Microphones were rather unselective, and in the period before the microphone boom, the actors would need to stay within range of the microphone and also within range of cameras which were enclosed in what were called ice boxes, in fact incredibly hot, in order to damp down the sound. Sources like this book, Barrett Kiesling's Talking Pictures, How They Are Made and How to Appreciate Them, cover some of the literally hundreds of small modifications, evolutions and incremental improvements in sound quality through the 1930s and into the early 1940s. These magazines and other publicity materials take us from the moment of the transition to sound to a period where sound is becoming more established and sound film production is more confident. This fan magazine, Screenland, from 1929, illustrates this really well. On the cover, it says, devoted to silent and talking pictures, showing that silent and sound pictures are being produced alongside each other. This story covers tricks of the talkies, with photographs of on-set production and sound recording and lots of discussion about some of the technological aspects, but covered from a popular perspective. Picturegoer from March 1930 tells us how far sound film style had regained the pace of silent cinema. So we have a feature on action comes to the talkies, and there's discussion of the sound film as pacey and exciting and the sound effects as contributing to a flow of action. And these tiny little cigarette cards from the early sound period feature how the movies are made, and they touch on some of the new sound technologies, the microphone boom being used to record sound in a western, and the sound control room, showing us again an interest in behind the scenes. So how was sound used to tell stories? And how did sound technicians move from being concerned with questions of technical expertise to applying their knowledge to what one sound engineer called the story values of the film?